In Formula 1, drivers are known for their razor-sharp focus and split-second decisions, but when emotions run high, even the best can snap. Here are insane moments where F1 drivers lose control. From Schumacher storming down the pit lane to confront David Coulthard to Verstappen shoving Esteban Ocon after a race, F1 has seen some unforgettable meltdowns. Michael Schumacher versus David Coulthard, 1998 Belgian Grand Prix. So, Spa-Francorchamps, right? A legendary track known for unpredictable weather, and on this particular day, it was like Mother Nature decided to unleash her worst. The rain was so intense that it turned the track into a skating rink, and right from the start, things went downhill.
Coulthard in the wall.
David Coulthard into the wall, will stop the race.
They'll have to red flag this.
Terrible. Oh, this is quite appalling. This is the worst start for a Grand Prix that I have ever seen in the whole of my life.
A massive multi-car crash on the opening lap took out nearly half the grid, carnage everywhere. But while all of this madness was unfolding, Michael Schumacher, as usual, seemed to be in a league of his own. He was driving his Ferrari through the storm like it was no big deal and had built a huge lead over Damon Hill. It looked like Schumacher had the race in the bag. Then, on lap 25, everything changed. Schumacher was coming up to lap David Coulthard, who was driving for McLaren. Now, Coulthard had been struggling in the treacherous conditions, and in an attempt to let Schumacher pass, he slowed down. But here's the thing, it was still pouring rain, visibility was practically zero, and Schumacher coming up fast didn't see Coulthard slowing down in time. Bam! Schumacher's Ferrari smashed into the back of Coulthard's McLaren, shattering his front suspension and forcing him to retire from the race. You can imagine Schumacher's reaction. He was livid. I mean, absolutely fuming. In his mind, Coulthard had basically ruined his race on purpose. He stormed back to the pits, tore off his helmet, and marched straight down to the McLaren garage like a man on a mission. But it didn't end there. The incident had massive consequences for the race and, ultimately, the championship. Damon Hill went on to win the race for Jordan, their first ever victory in Formula 1, while Schumacher was left to deal with the frustration of what he believed was a deliberate move by Coulthard. It also gave Mika Häkkinen, Coulthard's teammate and Schumacher's main title rival, a bit of breathing room in the championship battle. Valtteri Bottas versus George Russell, 2021 Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. The 2021 Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix gave us one of the most dramatic moments of the season, and it wasn't just about the race itself, it was about the building tension between Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. It all boiled over at Imola. The race was wet, making everything more unpredictable. Russell went for the overtake at nearly 200 miles per hour, just as they approached the kink at turn 1. Now, bear in mind, the track was still slippery from the rain, so things were already on edge. As Russell tried to pass Bottas, the two cars collided in a massive crash. Russell's Williams clipped the Mercedes, sending both cars smashing into the barrier.
On board with George Russell, who hits Bottas. Oh. Yes, because he gets onto the grass.
It was a brutal high-speed wreck with debris everywhere, and both cars wrecked beyond repair. Both drivers got out of their cars, shaken, but unhurt, and you could just feel the tension. Russell stormed over to Bottas, absolutely fuming, and instead of a calm exchange, he slapped Bottas on the helmet in anger. Bottas, not one to back down, responded by flipping Russell the middle finger. It was a surreal moment, watching two drivers from the same Mercedes family lose their cool so publicly. The aftermath was messy too. Both drivers blamed each other for the crash. Russell said Bottas had squeezed him off the track, while Bottas claimed Russell was too aggressive. But more than that, it created a really awkward situation for Mercedes. Toto Wolff, who had mentored Russell for years and was expected to bring him into the team soon, had to calm things down between his two drivers. The incident at Imola became one of those moments people still talk about, because it wasn't just about a crash, it was about two drivers fighting for more than just position on the track. They were battling for their futures. Max Verstappen versus Esteban Ocon, 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix. The 2018 Brazilian Grand Prix was supposed to be a crowning moment for Max Verstappen. He had driven a brilliant race, taking the lead despite starting 5th on the grid, and was looking set to take the victory. Everything was going smoothly, and with just a few laps to go, it looked like another win was in the bag for him. But that's when things took a wild turn, thanks to an unexpected clash with Esteban Ocon.
Ocon's on super soft tyres. If he's got the pace, then he is allowed, within the regulations, to unlap himself. That's not a problem, but
he's not entitled to drive into the side of the race leader.
Ocon was trying to unlap himself, which isn't that unusual in Formula 1, but the problem here was that Ocon wasn't just backing off or waiting for the perfect moment. He was going for it, trying to unlap himself right in the middle of the pack, and when they came into turn 2, Ocon tried to pass Verstappen, and the two collided. It was one of those "what just happened" moments, and suddenly, Verstappen's car was spinning off the track. You can imagine the frustration. Verstappen lost the race lead because of the crash and ended up finishing second behind Lewis Hamilton. To Verstappen, it felt like his race had been stolen from him. He was absolutely livid on the team radio, calling Ocon an idiot and clearly wanting to confront him as soon as the race was over. After the race, during the mandatory weigh-in, Verstappen walked straight up to Ocon and shoved him multiple times, all while cameras were rolling. You could see the anger on Max's face. He wasn't holding back. He felt like Ocon had robbed him of a win and he wasn't going to let it slide. Ocon, for his part, didn't really fight back, probably knowing it wouldn't end well. The FIA wasn't too happy about Verstappen's behavior. Sure, he had every right to be angry, but physically confronting another driver like that wasn't going to fly. As a result, Verstappen was handed a 2-day community service penalty, which is a pretty unique punishment in Formula 1. But this wasn't just about a penalty, it was about Verstappen's reputation. While the incident with Ocon cost him a win, it also solidified Verstappen as one of the most intense competitive drivers on the grid. Whether you loved him for it or criticized him, there was no denying that Max Verstappen was going to fight for every inch of the track, sometimes even after the checkered flag had fallen. Nelson Piquet versus Eliseo Salazar, 1982 German Grand Prix. The 1982 German Grand Prix is remembered for one of the wildest moments in Formula 1 history, and it had nothing to do with the race itself. It was all about what happened after the race ended for Nelson Piquet. Piquet, driving for Brabham, was at the top of his game. He was leading the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim and seemed set to take the win. Salazar, on the other hand, was nowhere near the front. He was driving for the lesser-known ATS team, just trying to make it to the end of the race. But then, in the middle of the race, as Piquet was attempting to lap Salazar, disaster struck. Salazar didn't move out of the way properly, and the two collided at a chicane. Piquet's car was sent straight into the barriers, wrecking his rear wing and ending his race on the spot. As soon as Piquet got out of his car, he didn't even check the damage. He made a beeline straight for Salazar, who had also retired from the race. And then it happened. Piquet started physically attacking Salazar right there on the side of the track. He shoved him, threw a couple of punches, and even threw a kick for good measure.
I couldn't help it. And take that. Oh my goodness.
The whole scene was so surreal that the commentators didn't even know how to react. One of the best moments came from legendary commentator Murray Walker, who famously exclaimed, "Take that, oh my goodness," as if he was calling a boxing match instead of a Formula 1 race. What makes this incident even crazier is the backstory. Piquet had actually mentored Salazar early in his career, helping him get into Formula 1. So when Piquet attacked him, it wasn't just about losing a race, it felt personal. You can imagine how the media and fans reacted to this. It instantly became one of the most talked about moments in F1 history. It's these kinds of moments that remind us how much is at stake in Formula 1. The speed, the skill, the strategy, it's all there. But sometimes it's the human emotions that take center stage. And Nelson Piquet's outburst remains one of the most unforgettable examples of that. James Hunt punches a marshal, 1977 Canadian Grand Prix. The 1977 Canadian Grand Prix also gave us one of the most outrageous and unforgettable moments in Formula 1 history, all thanks to James Hunt. Hunt was driving for McLaren at the time, and he was battling Mario Andretti for the lead. As he was fighting it out on the track, things took a turn for the worse. Hunt lost control of his car, went off the road, and crashed out of the race. A track marshal came running over to check on Hunt and help him out of the wreckage. Pretty standard procedure, right? But in his anger, Hunt wasn't thinking straight. He was frustrated, disappointed, and probably embarrassed that his race had ended this way. And in a completely unprovoked move, Hunt spun around and punched the marshal square in the face. Yes, you read that right. He punched a guy whose only crime was trying to make sure Hunt was okay. The marshal, Eddie Strong, had no idea what hit him. Literally. Hunt was clearly in no mood to be helped or told what to do. His emotions had completely taken over, and that famous temper of his was on full display. The punch knocked the marshal to the ground, leaving everyone watching in total shock. Eddie Strong would later talk about how blindsided he felt by Hunt's actions, and even years later, he admitted that the punch left him feeling wronged and shaken. For Hunt, however, it was just another day in the life. After realizing what he had done, he threw an arm around the marshal in an attempt to smooth things over, but the damage was done. Lance Stroll shoves his trainer, 2022 Qatar Grand Prix. Even in the modern, polished world of Formula One, tempers can flare, and emotions can get the better of even the most professional drivers. One of the more recent examples of this came from Lance Stroll at the 2022 Qatar Grand Prix. Now, Stroll isn't exactly known for dramatic outbursts, but what happened in Qatar shows that even the more reserved drivers can snap under pressure. So here's what went down. Stroll had a pretty rough qualifying session. He didn't make it out of Q1, which is a big deal, especially for someone driving for a team that expects better results. After getting out of the car, clearly frustrated, Stroll's personal trainer approached him, but instead of the usual debrief or calm conversation, Stroll shoved his trainer out of the way. It wasn't a massive, dramatic moment, but it was noticeable enough that cameras caught it and fans took note. The shove seemed to come out of nowhere, but you could tell it was all about the frustration bubbling over from a poor performance. Stroll was under a lot of pressure to deliver, especially as his teammate Fernando Alonso had been outperforming him. It's moments like these that remind us that F1 drivers, for all their professionalism, are still human. They feel the pressure just like anyone else, and sometimes it spills out in unexpected ways. Stroll's shove might seem like a minor incident, but it highlighted how even a quiet driver can lose their cool when the stakes are high. Fernando Alonso's radio rants. If we're talking about emotional outbursts in modern F1, we can't leave out Fernando Alonso. Now, Alonso is known as one of the most experienced and talented drivers on the grid, but he's also known for his fiery personality, which comes through loud and clear on the team radio. Over the years, Alonso's radio rants have become legendary, showing just how frustrated and emotional even the most seasoned drivers can get. One of the most famous examples came during the 2015 Japanese Grand Prix. Alonso was driving for McLaren at the time, but the team's performance was far from where it should have been. His car's lack of power was painfully obvious, and during the race, Alonso couldn't hold back his frustration. Over the radio, he compared the McLaren engine to a GP2 engine. Saying it was embarrassing. You could hear the raw frustration in his voice as he struggled to keep pace with the rest of the field. These radio rants have become a part of Alonso's identity in F1. They show a driver who's deeply passionate, but also someone who's not afraid to speak his mind when things aren't going right. What's interesting about Alonso is that while many drivers might internalize their frustrations or keep it behind closed doors, he lets it all out over the radio for everyone to hear. It's one of the reasons fans love him. He's real, unfiltered, and doesn't shy away from calling out his team when they're not delivering. His outbursts may be verbal rather than physical, but they're just as telling of the intense emotions drivers go through during a race. Whether it's shoving a trainer in frustration or letting loose on the radio, these moments remind us that no matter how cool and composed F1 drivers may seem, the high-pressure world they live in can push anyone to their limits. So there you have it, some of the wildest moments when F1 drivers completely lost control both on and off the track. From Lance Stroll's unexpected shove to Fernando Alonso's legendary radio meltdowns, these examples show just how much pressure these drivers are under. Whether it's an impulsive reaction or a full-blown rant, it's these raw, unfiltered moments that remind us that behind the helmets and the high-speed cars, they're human too. If you enjoyed this dive into F1's most emotional outbursts, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Let me know in the comments which moment of driver rage is your favorite, or if you think there's one I missed. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next race.